Welcome to the UK Fantasy Football Show, Goals podcast that discusses many a football fan's favourite pastime. We'll be analysing the last week or so's results, looking at the FPL stars since the Premier League returned last month, and revealing our teams for Game Week 35. Now, I wasn't around last week, so we have a little bit of catching up to do. 3 game weeks have passed, but despite a few positives, especially for me, the table still favours Sam in our league. Sam, you got 65 points, 54 points, and 72 points, giving you a lead heading into the final 4 weeks of 64 points. It would be pretty phenomenal. A pretty phenomenal ball drop at this point for you to fail to be champion now.
If one of you miraculously does manage to catch me, the skill is on behalf of you guys, not my failing.
Oh, really? Is that how you're going to paint this? Okay.
Yeah.
You must be happy with your week's result this week, though, because you were lagging behind a little bit till Man United played, basically, and then you really caught up.
Well, that's why you back the big boys, don't you? But yeah, I was tickling along, and I think I was about 20 or 30 points behind both of you. Just in terms of the week, obviously, I'm miles ahead in terms of the overall league. But I was like, oh no, what's gone wrong here? And then I realised I had like 5 or 6 players left to play, and you guys only had a couple. So yeah, United saved me because 2 of the players I had playing on Thursday were Son and Calvert-Lewin, who got a combined total of 2 points.
Yeah. That serves you right for going with Spurs players. Although Calvert-Lewin as well hasn't really delivered since I was kind of like lauding him up a bit. Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, so he's for the bin. Jimenez has obviously been in great form all season, apart from when I've transferred him in. He's blank for 3 weeks on the trot now. And I've had Serge Aurier on the bench the last 2 weeks, and he's got 8 points each week. So that's a little bit annoying.
It's a shame you didn't start Nketiah this week, though.
It's not, no. Yeah, -2. He's a sausage, isn't he?
What a little cameo that was going on. Off you go.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a red card in my opinion. Primarily because he kicked someone with his studs in the knee.
Yes. I'm surprised that Arsenal tried to appeal it, to be honest. It seems like not worth the time, but
yeah, spurious.
Yeah, that's how I describe it. Dave, you got 56 points, 71 points, and 64 points. You actually smashed it. I think it's 2 weeks in a row now with Bruno Fernandes as your captain, didn't you? So a very good choice there.
Because I've settled into this philosophy when selecting captains now that you just stick with just go with it, just go with your trusted guys, and Fernandes has been absolutely epic since he started playing for Man United. So for me, even if he has an off week, he's still going to be captain the week after. But he hasn't really had an off week. I mean, there was kind of saying last night was an off night for him on the commentary, but it wasn't really, was it?
Goal and an assist.
Exactly, yeah. But I guess the expectation of him's have gone up even more so now. It's disappointing to see him leave the field, actually, him and Martial, because I was hoping United were going to really push on once they got to 3-0 and absolutely hammer Villa, but
I guess when you have a game every three days, and you're trying to get a Champions League place, you kind of need to keep the players fresh a little bit, don't you?
Did you see? Yeah, I think it's probably for the best though that they took him off or took them both off, because it's a good sign that they're going to continue to start and play them week in, week out.
Yeah. Martial really wasn't happy, was he, coming off? Sulky Martial, sulky when he plays, and then sulky when he comes off as well.
He had a good game. He's having a great post-lockdown, isn't he, actually? He's really in form. Greenwood's goal was fantastic, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later in the podcast. But I think the way that Martial essentially earned him that goal was fantastic as well. He intercepted Tyrone Mings, didn't he, in United's own half, and then powered forwards. He's just had a really good season overall as Martial, and that United attack now is so settled. Like everything around, you couldn't really put a weak spot in it, really. It's just very flowing at the moment.
And another clean sheet. I think they've got like the 3rd best defence in the league now, which I think will probably surprise quite a few people.
Yeah, a bit of a turnaround that.
Yeah, but I like when I think the restart happened, and I loaded up with Sheffield United defenders, and I've got rid of all but Henderson now. And I had John Egan, and he bombed the first couple of weeks, so I got rid of him, and he's smashing it to pieces now. And he also dicked me about on was it Wednesday when they played Wolves?
Yeah.
Because I've got 2 Wolves defenders, and I caught the last 20 minutes, and I just thought, come on, this looks like a really boring match. Nothing's happening. Just see it out. 30 seconds left. Boom, Egan steps up. Great header. And he robbed me of another 8 points.
That's what you get for dropping him, though, isn't it? It's karma. That's what he'll see it as. Didn't he get sent off? Isn't that why you dropped him? Or is that another Sheffield United player that I'm getting mixed up with?
Oh, and I think he might have got sent off, yeah.
Against Newcastle. 2 yellow cards, yeah. So that's a bit unfortunate from your part. For me, I had 86 points, 77 points, and 65 points, which is a bit of a turnaround, having been terrible for the previous few weeks. I kind of looked out, finally getting some points from Aubameyang when I put him as captain. Got a nice tidy.
Oh, yeah, that was a great shout,
That was tidy 32 points. He's gone back to being crap since then, but tidy 32 points that game week. And I also did a pretty savvy transfer in of Willian, which isn't something you guys have done yet. So I'm sort of benefiting a bit from that, and that's been nice to see. I was a little bit disappointed with my captain choice this week. Unlike Dave, who takes the very sensible approach of just going for the informed player, I continue to try and mix it up and with heavily mixed results. So I went for Van Dijk this week, which is pretty stupid.
What was the logic behind that? Because when I looked at your team, I was like, has he done this wrong?
Well, I think the way I approach captaining is a little bit like if you're at a roulette wheel and you're like, what number is it going to be? And you just think, Van Dijk. Because the way I saw it, I was like, he hasn't scored a headed goal in a little while. I reckon they'll keep a clean sheet. Maybe he'll get a headed goal and a clean sheet, and then, I'll be cleaning up then. But obviously, it just...
You can't gamble with your captain's choice.
Well, yeah, I mean,
this points you get from it.
This is clearly where I'm going wrong, for this season.
I'm glad you are, because you're really you're hot on my tail now. So
I know, I could have...
This maverick approach, I'm all for.
If I'd chosen Bruno Fernandes, I think I'm doing some very quick maths here. I think I'd be pretty much level with you, if not slightly above you. So it's worked out in your favour that I'm being a bit of a tit, to be honest.
With the Willian selection, I'm looking at his stats recently, and it's mental how well he's played and how many points he's been accumulating. I've always quite liked him as a player, but isn't he? I always got the feeling from Chelsea fans that he's proper hot and cold.
Oh, yeah. This won't last, it's fleeting, but got to make the most of it.
Wasn't he playing for a new contract or something like that? Is that not something to do with this upturn in performance?
You always see that in the NBA when people are in a contract year, they have a miraculous season, posting career highs, and they'll get their 5-year, 25 million a season contract, and then they sort of revert to the norm and start just bumming about again. So I think Willian's he's an NBA player basically.
Nothing like a bit of survival instinct to kind of get them going.
Yeah.
Don't want to lose my mansion in London and chauffeur.
Survival is a broad description.
It's survival for them. Miles to them,
It's a great shout, Miles, and I can only applaud you for it. I think it's big choices like that make me, I think, want you to win your and Dave's little mini league.
All right. Well, I hope we both catch you. I mean, that's unrealistic, but it would be. I'd like something to be at stake for the last game week of the season. I
honestly, I think it will be, because is it 60 points? That's 15 points a week difference, and we've seen differentials between our scores like that a few times. So it's all it needs.
I'm saying, just in my defence of this, Miles catching me up here, and this might have also worked against me, but 2 out of the last 3 game weeks, I've not made any changes through missing the deadline. So I have made some changes.
You don't get any sympathy for an
No. So the current standings at the moment are Sam on 1,936 points, Dave on 1,872 points, and I'm 15 points behind him on 1,857. So first place does seem a little bit wrapped up, but second place remains up for grabs. But we'll see. Miracles can happen. We'll see what happens there. In our public league, me and Islam is still set to win. He's pulled 10 points clear of his nearest rival, Graham Wilshaw, another listener who's been doing great this season. And although I wouldn't say it's wrapped up, he has been number one for certainly most of 2020. And he's still doing very, very well indeed. Way above us in terms of score. Podcast listeners and YouTube viewers, you can still join our league. There's only a few games left, but you can still join if you want. Test yourself against us. The code to type in on the FPL website is NHC4WZ. So let's move on. This week, our big talking point are the players who've excelled since the return of the Premier League in mid-June. There was always a little bit of uncertainty as to which teams and players would be in the ascendancy after a bit of an unprecedented break in action, really. But what we've seen by and large, at least from the way I look at it, is kind of very similar to what we saw in the early part of 2020. A lot of the players who were in form already, the likes of Danny Ings and Anthony Martial, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, have continued to be excellent in this sort of restart, haven't they?
Yeah, Ings has been on fire, hasn't
he? It was a question. It was a loose question, but semi-rhetorical. But yeah, they have. I mean, do you guys disagree? Do you think there's been a difference or not?
No, I think they've all kicked on, and they're all. I suppose apart from Ings and arguably Martial, they are some of the best players in the world. So you'd expect them to be keeping that kind of high level. But I think I'm pleasantly surprised that Ings has continued to score, because I'll hold my hands up and thought, he score 7 matches on the bounce, something like that. That was just an absolute fluke, and that was essentially going to be him done for the season. And he's proved me wrong. And it does happen from time to time, which I'm fine. It's fine, no better. I've not picked him purposely because of that. And yeah, Martial, you could tell he was just starting. He'd been looking to settle into that continual role of playing as the number 9. That prime central striker for Man United. And he's arguably been the biggest beneficiary of Bruno signing. That he's getting incisive passing, forward passes a lot more. They seem to have developed a great understanding very, very early on. Even pre the restart. So yeah, he's playing with a world-class player behind him, as well as a few world-class players around him as well. So yeah, it's not hugely surprising, but it's pleasing, I think.
Yeah, I thought what we do is run through the top 10 players since the lockdown has ended and the Premier League's restarted, running through them in order, well, in backwards order, I guess, from 10 to 1, starting with then Phil Bowden, a bit of a surprise name, I guess, in the mix here. He's got averaged 6.3 points since the lockdown finished, since the lockdown finished and Premier League restarted. He's got
Nice.
2 very heavy game weeks, which do distort it slightly. He got 16 points against Burnley when he got 2 goals, and he got 12 points against Liverpool when they won 4-0, and he got a goal and an assist. And he really does look like someone who could be a bit more expensive next season, couldn't he?
Yeah, for sure. He's class though, like proper class. I can't remember which. I mean, it might have been the Liverpool game where he scored, but the speed of his passing, and then it's the touch, and then the move, and then he's already off. He looks like, well, I think this was always City's plan for him to be David Silva's heir. I think he's, the similarities look, striking. You've heard him being called the Stockport Iniesta. Stockport. So yeah, he looks class, and I'm annoyingly looking forward to how he does actually.
Do either of you two have him?
No, I haven't put him in yet, but just because of Man City's rotation, even though he scores loads of points one week, so then you feel like if I put him in, he probably would drop him and won't play him for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, I like look of Foden, I really do. I think a lot of young midfielders in this country would love to play in that Manchester City team, but not just from like on the technical level, which is obviously excellent. You can see he's got that football brain, great decision making, which when you're playing in that kind of side where you're surrounded by that kind of quality, that's what makes you part of that team. Your decision making has got to be absolutely sensational. And yeah, having watched him on TV, it just looks like he doesn't do anything stupid, you know. Which again is something that David Silva's always like. You kind of feel like you could rely on him. He just look after the ball totally, make all the right decisions, even if it's a split-second decision, or he's got a bit of time on the ball. And that's probably what separates people like Foden from his peers.
Yeah, David Silva, you both mentioned him there, and he had a blinding game against Newcastle, got the man of the match, scored an incredible goal. I think you're both right in that Foden is kind of positioned, I guess, to be his successor in that sense. I think Bowden missed about 3 pretty good chances in that game, which is still, obviously, there is a difference. I mean, it goes without saying, between the stage of their career that they're at. And I think Guardiola would like to see him convert more of those chances. But, you know, he's still pretty young. He's still breaking into that team, certainly as opposed to earlier in the season when he was much more of a bench warmer. And it's good to see him getting more game time. I put him into my team. He's only 5.3 million. And the way I'm looking at it with City players, because I've got 3 in my team at the moment, although they have Brighton away this week, which I'm sure they'll win, but it won't necessarily be heavy. The week after, they have Bournemouth at home. And I honestly think that'll be double figures. I think that I think it'll be close to a record-breaking win. Bournemouth could score, don't get me wrong. City's defence aren't exactly, you know, faultless, but it could be like a 10-1 or something like that. Because they just look so leaky, that Bournemouth team, and Man City just at home looks so promising going forwards. And
yeah, that was one of the thing about the game last night at the time of recording, that Spurs couldn't turn Bournemouth over. That's how poor Spurs are at the moment. You know, it's because they are easily one of the worst teams in the league. I'm sure even Eddie Howe would be man enough to admit that.
Yeah.
But Man City's run to the end of the season is pretty good, and I've done the same as you, Miles. I've loaded up on City players and squeezed Mahrez into my side now in midfield, because I'd imagine he will feature fairly heavily towards the end of the season.
With City,
Mahrez is one of my annoyances, because I thought when I played my wild card in 31 that I'd put him in and I'd put Richarlison in, and then I thought, right, I'm going to put Son in instead after Richarlison, and I keep on meaning to put Mahrez in because he's looking at that Leicester Mahrez at the moment.
He is, but again, it's just that City thing, isn't it? You feel a bit like, oh, I don't know. Like he's not like Salah, for instance. You know, Salah's going to play for Liverpool like 99% of the time. He will play, and he'll rack up some points. I was that close. I couldn't get Salah in by, I think it was 500,000. And with my 2 transfers this week, and I was like,
a lot.
Yeah, it is quite a bit. I mean, obviously, but I was tempted to kind of shift it around and then still go with Salah. But then I thought, actually, Mahrez, and you look at Man City's fixtures. For me, that's where my gamble's going to be between now and the end of the season, I think.
Yeah, the thing with Mahrez there, I'm just looking at his since the restart, he's only played 90 minutes once. He's played 64 minutes, 60, 90, 32, 58, 74. So he's never going to play. You're never going to get the full 90 minutes out of him.
No, but he's going to score 5 against Bournemouth. So
that's
2 assists.
That's exactly it. I think with City, if you're going to have a few City players, you kind of need a good 12th player, like, you know, a first sub off the bench.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you do definitely leave yourself a little bit open. So that's what I've tried to do with my team, because I've top-loaded a load of City players in there. Number 9 on the list, actually, on this top 10 list, is also a City player. A player who's seen a bit of a revival in form since the lockdown, actually, which is Raheem Sterling. I don't think he'd scored in the league, at least, in 2020 until the first match back against Arsenal, when he scored one. He scored one against his old team, Liverpool, obviously, when they won 4-0. Got 2 assists in that match as well. So he got 16 points then. And he scored and assisted against Newcastle as well. So especially in some of these home matches, he's really we're seeing the sort of Sterling we saw at the start of the season, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, I didn't realise he hadn't scored for so long. But again, it's a real tough one as to whether I go in on City, because as the point you mentioned with the Pep roulette is, I mean, Sterling's played 90 minutes since we've been back, but he's also didn't play at all against Burnley. Played 29 minutes against Newcastle. Admittedly, still got a goal and an assist. So yeah, it's, was he 12 point?
He's 11.7. He's gone down. Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot of money because you can just see Pep, rather than go, well, we can go and get double figures against them, and go, actually, I'm going to, I'm going to play Gundogan up front, and I might, just completely rip his team up and change it about because he can. So, I don't think I'd be getting Sterling in a hurry.
I could actually have got Sterling in, as I was talking about that transfer, but I've gone for Mahrez over him just because there's always something about Sterling that irks me with the way he does score goals. He does score goals in that Man City team, but you'd have to be a poor player not to, I suppose, in a lot of the circumstances. But he doesn't. I don't know how to describe it really. He doesn't really. I don't really see him creating his own goals, right? So a lot of the time, Mahrez does create his own goals. He picks the ball up quite fairly deep on the wing and then dribbles it in and curls it in or whatever. Whereas Sterling's goals, he tends to either create for someone else or tap it in from 2 yards out. Do you see what I mean? So I'm always a bit like, he will score goals for Man City, but at the same time, I almost don't think he kind of creates his own goals, from nothing, if you like. So I think I've never fully believed in the way he kind of strikes the ball and everything. I've always found he's a bit kind of clumsy with it when he's in front of goal and everything. So there's a part of me that's always a bit like, oh no, I don't really trust him with that. But he's a great player. He has had a great season. It did dip off, didn't it, quite dramatically at one point. But
it's certainly the start and the finish have been really good for him. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be back to near his best performances now. So yeah. I don't know. Like I say, it's just a bit of a gut feeling with him, really. I think the Man City, though, we're talking about here, could really run riot over the next few weeks.
Yeah, some of the fixtures are appealing, to say the least. So number 5, so we are skipping forwards a few here because there are 4 players who are joint 5th with an average of 7.4 points when it comes to post-lockdown action. 2 of those are strikers, who are the 2 highest strikers on the game during that period, and 2 of them are midfielders. So I'll just name them all at once. You've got Mo Salah, Liverpool obviously, Mason Greenwood, Christian Pulisic, and Danny Ings. We've already talked about a couple of those. I guess, which of those 4 has impressed you the most, would you say, since action came back?
Go on, Dave. You say it.
It's got to be Mason Greenwood, hasn't it?
It does,
what a player.
Yeah.
It doesn't even look like a young player, and I think that's one of the things that whenever a great talent comes through, they don't really look out of their depth or young at all when they're playing at the top level. And Greenwood seems to be, it's quite exciting, but he seems to be that type of player. Yeah, he's just ruthless. He has been absolutely ruthless since he came back. Various people have said that he's been working with Solskjaer and he's finishing and things like that, but it doesn't seem like it needed a lot of work. Even little glimpses we saw of him before, people were raving about him. He was listed in the goal next gen list. It just seems like we might have a real world-class goal scorer on our hands here, which is great for England and even better for Man United.
Yeah, he's devilishly exciting. I was saying to Miles earlier, my favourite goal he scored so far, I think, was his second against Bournemouth, when he was running from the centre of the goal to the right. And you see players in that position all the time, and they keep on waiting for almost like the just enough space to shoot, and they take another touch and another touch and another touch. And it looked exactly what he was doing. And you can only assume that the defender's thinking, well, I've seen this a million times over. The keeper's thinking this a million times over. I've seen this a million times over. He's going to go way, way, way wide. And he just took a touch, and before you know it, it's in the roof of the net. So the keeper didn't have a chance to set himself. The defender's balance was all off. And And, he scored a few goals like that now where he's taking it just that half step earlier than is assumed to be the norm. And, the keepers aren't set properly. And he's got a foot like a traction engine. I saw it likened to him. He shoots like Adriano on old school Pro Evo. And, the two-footedness is equally remarkable because he absolutely slams that ball, left foot or right foot. So, yeah, the idea of what he could become is...
Yeah, it's just getting those shots away, isn't it? It's putting the ball in the back of the net, which sounds like a really simple thing, but we have seen it with players like Rashford, where too often they'd get themselves in fantastic positions and then they can't quite get it over the line. And Greenwood's like the opposite of that. He's in a position where you think, before you've even thought about him shooting, he scored. It's in the back of the net, And this must be the same for those defenders, like you were saying, Sam. They're just they play with class players every week, and they know how to stop them. And yet, this young lad is actually one step ahead of them.
Yeah. I think we've touched on it already, but just the way that he can strike with both feet is just something you don't see at the top level. Like, plenty of people can use both feet, and often it'll get sort of pointed out when a player can't use his foot very well, and they're always pushing it onto the stronger foot. But to strike with that sort of power with both feet is just something that at the top level you see so rarely. And I was looking before, people aren't able to figure out what foot he is. Is he left-footed? Is he right-footed? No one's really sure. He seems to be genuinely, I guess you'd call it like ambipedal, or ambipedal. He's just as strong with both feet as you can imagine, and it's just such a raw talent. And it's exciting, as you said, Dave and Sam. It's someone who is clearly going to be a force to be reckoned with, as long as he doesn't get injured. If he gets an injury that prevents his speed or his power, then it might set him back. But at the moment, he just looks like a world-class talent in waiting, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think in terms of his his two-footedness, you've seen him score a few like it when he's dribbling into the box and he throws a load of step overs, and you couple that with him striking the ball so early. Defenders have got no clue as to whether he's going to the left or to the right of them, and before they've realised which way he's gone, it's already in the back of the net. And there's no real way, apart from defenders just purely guessing and just almost like goalkeepers at a penalty, just flinging themselves to the left or right, hoping that's the way he's going to go. There's no real way of stopping that. So yeah, if when I play football, I'm mostly left-footed.
Mostly.
If I'm throwing my big lolloping step overs, everyone knows that I'm going to my left. But with Greenwood, you just turn people in knots.
Yeah, it's quite something to behold. And he'll definitely be one that goes up in price next season. He is 4.6 million at the moment, which is slightly preposterous. And it's also surprising neither of you have him.
I've just put him in this week, so
right.
That's the end of his career.
The Dave Jinx. Excellent.
Yeah, I've toyed with having him, but I thought even when he started this hot streak, that given his age and how little first team football he's played in the Premier League at least, then he'd get a game, be rested, get a game, be rested, and he's just been played all the time at the moment. So I just never believed that he'd be continually playing, and it seems like he is. And I've got that drive the next 4 games to try and get third spot as I predicted. So I can easily see him starting every week now. But it was funny because remember I think all 3 of us have had him at various stages over the season, thinking he was about to break in. And he didn't. And now is that time, and I've not got him.
Yeah. I'm just looking at his sort of points. In the first half of the season, he got 1 goal. Right at the end of the first half, he got another couple. Certainly in the first 15 games, he'd only got 1 goal. And then he started getting the odd couple here and there. He obviously was scoring in Europe as well and in some of the cup competitions. But it's really since lockdown that he's really progressed and taken it to that next level. And it's just something special at the moment to see him.
He kind of cuts the figure of a real calm character as well. He doesn't look fazed by anything. He doesn't it doesn't look like any of this is going to his head. He doesn't got a look in his eyes like he can't believe his own form either. He almost looks a bit kind of like, well, what did you expect? I knew I had this in my locker anyway.
Yeah,
so
I'm Mason Greenwood. That's what I do. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Big fat wow.
So if he carries on like this, it could be great. I mean, you don't see that kind of those kind of shots from many players. I want to say, and only people like your Sergio Agueros and strikers like that are the ones that when they get half a chance, they put it away. So let's hope he carries on like he does, like he has been doing since he came out of lockdown. I think Solskjaer's playing him more though, isn't he? Since he wasn't playing much, was he, in the start of the season at all?
He's starting every match.
Yeah, and Dan James was playing pretty well at the start of the season, but the comparisons between Dan James and Greenwood now are it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? Would you, if you were Southgate, obviously it's Euro 2021 now or 2020 plus, would you take him next summer?
Oh yeah, definitely. If he keeps playing the way that he's doing and he keeps starting, United, if they keep this form up into next season, United will be title challengers and Greenwood will be starting in that title challenging team. So it's hard to see how he couldn't pick him. It's just whether the form sort of continues and whether he can stay in that starting spot. You would imagine, given United's money, that they might try and sign a big money player in the summer, and will they compete for that position? But you'd certainly say at this point, if Euro 2020 was happening next month, let's say, I'd say Greenwood would get into the squad for sure. So it's just whether he can keep it up. Which
is quite an amazing thing as well when you think about those, partly down to United. You've got Rashford, and then you've got Greenwood, obviously, and then you've got Sterling. You'd have Kane in there, and Sancho potentially, who could be playing for Manchester United maybe next season or beyond that, or playing in the Premier League. See how his progression goes. That's like quite an attacking force with those players.
Yeah, Bowden as well, Hudson-Odoi. England have a really good, if they can gel properly, then they have a really promising team coming through that could actually challenge for titles for the first time in, for 50 years. So it's exciting to be an England fan at the moment. It's just also a bit nerve-wracking.
I think what would compound my excitement to think, actually, yeah, we've got a chance, is if Southgate just got on with it and dropped Pickford.
Yeah.
That's our weak spot.
Yeah.
I suppose there's Pope, isn't there?
Get Pope in, yeah.
Henderson all day.
Henderson, yeah.
Nah, it's Pope for me.
Henderson's been brilliant, hasn't he, this season?
Yes, he has, yeah. And he could be United's number one next season.
I doubt it. I think he'll go back on loan for another year.
All right. Well, maybe in a few seasons then. So number 4 on the list, we're getting towards the big end of the form list now, is Kevin De Bruyne, joint top scorer so far this season, along with Mo Salah with 223 points in FPL. He's averaged 8.3 post-lockdown, so he's having a pretty good time of it, as he has done all season. It's hard to really think of a patch during the entire season that he hasn't been scoring points. All of us have had him pretty much the duration of the season, haven't we? Or have you guys split it in between?
I had him from week 1.
Yeah.
And it was bravado more than anything. I was proclaiming he would, sort of reclaim his crown as the best player in the Premier League, and I think I'm right. He's sort of run out of words to describe what he brings to City, but he just assists, his goals. He's almost that. He's the engine. He's the engine and the metronome, but not in that traditional metronome position, which is obviously a bit deeper in like Sergio Busquets style. He's just amazing.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think he's my player of the season. Just even though Liverpool have the best team, there's no doubt in that, but the best individual player for me is De Bruyne.
Yeah.
He's kind of like boringly good, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's got to the point where it's like
That's like saying
you just expect it from him, though. It's like
that's like
it's
going,
a bit
Messi,
like
Messi, you've taken it around 8 players and scored.
yeah, it's the same with Messi. Messi's become boringly good.
Oh.
Like you're just a bit like you get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, I've seen him do it 1,000 times now. You've seen De Bruyne do it 1,000 times. You know, it's like I can get excited about some players, but then there's other players who are just kind of a bit like, yeah, that's. I mean, to be honest, he looks bored by it. If you ever seen Kevin De Bruyne looks bored of it, and same with Messi as well. Messi's bored of playing because no one can get near him, and it's the same with Kevin De Bruyne. It's like no one gets anywhere near him, and he just looks like he's just like, well, what's the point? Like this isn't a challenge for me, you know. Find somebody I can compete with, and then I'll like break into a smile or show some emotion. But until then, I'm perfectly happy just taking the piss out of you all.
I kind of agree with your sentiment, but because I always thought that about Tiki Taka and that that Guardiola Barcelona team. Like, it was really pretty. The first time I sort of saw Tiki Taka, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And after about 3 games, I was like, oh my god, this is so boring. This is boring. Just kick it and run with it, for God's sake.
You wanted like a Neil Warnock long ball or something like that.
Yeah,
just
bit of dynamism.
kick it into the box. Break out the mold, guys. Let's try something different, But we're winning,
Yeah, it was like City against Newcastle. They were just so typically City, the goals. You just like, oh, where's the individuality? Where's the thought process?
It does take a bit
Ridiculous.
of like the flair out of the game when players are so like well trained and like operate in such a strict manner that there's almost like there isn't that human element where they're going to make a mistake or they're going to give the ball away. They play in such a formulaic way that you're a bit like.
Yeah, I think if you were being hot takey, you could say by lauding this Man City team is akin to going to the National Portrait Gallery and sticking something and going, "This is the greatest thing ever." When in reality, it's just someone's done a paint by numbers set from W.H. Smith.
That is obscene. You're both obscene. I'm not even gonna...
You see, Miles, I think this appeals to you because you quite like things like that, I think structurally it works perfectly. I think it all depends on your own I think it all depends on your own mentality and your own outlook, If you like flamboyancy, Man City aren't really your team, If you like things that are unexpected, Man City.
Oh, come on. You can't say Man City aren't unexpected. You see the likes. I mean, yes, they are just a force to be reckoned with. But, you get moments of magic.
They're clinical. They should be wearing doctor suits.
You get moments of magic from the likes of David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. And then what I like about the Man City team is you also get complete moments of madness, like when they played against Chelsea and their defenders just forgot how to defend, or Fernandinho just flew in all over the place. Like, for me, that's what I like about watching Man City, is that they are quite a flawed team and they're not perfect. I actually agree with the tiki-taka stuff because that could be really boring to watch. I seem to remember one of my least favourite games until right at the end of World Cup 2018 was Spain against Russia. When Spain dominated Russia all match, it was so boring, but they couldn't score and they also weren't really fashioning real chances. So they kind of deserved it in the end when they got knocked out, because they just weren't turning that control into goals. But what City do is they turn that control into goals and also sometimes ridiculous mistakes.
I like how the rest of the team can't compute what the defence is doing. Like when they're like glitch, and then the rest of the players like look around like, did we just concede? Like because they can't understand how like John Stones can be so bad, or it's.
I think that's why De Bruyne always looks miserable, because he has to play in the same team as some of those defenders.
Yeah, he's pretty much like, look, I'm doing exactly what I'm programmed to do. Why do you guys do
that? Pretty much exactly that. So number 2 on the list is a joint number 2, so equal second, Anthony Martial and Willian. Now, I mentioned earlier about how neither of you have Willian, but both of you have Martial, don't you? So I think they do fulfill that same sort of, box-ticking element. And I think they're a similar price, aren't they? Martial might be a bit more expensive. Martial's gone way up, actually. I take that back. Martial's 8.3 now, whereas Willian hasn't seen that same price rise. He's 7.3. But yeah, they've both got, had really good times of it since the lockdown ended. Willian, probably more surprisingly so. He's got a pretty phenomenal record since the lockdown finished. 2, 10, 14, 9 and 11. So other than that first match against Villa, he's been, consistently excellent, which I'm now enjoying. You guys aren't.
Yeah, I think I remember saying, we were saying right at the start that Martial, if he was playing in the right kind of team with the right kind of players, was an enormous bargain. The idea would be able to pick the starting Man United centre forward for 7.5 mil. It's preposterous, and he's done pretty well all season. I think we started the season with a goal in the first 2 games, big barren spell. He's picked up a few here and there, but he's really kicked on since Fernandes came in. That's been the game changer for him.
Yeah. It's they're both having really good ends to the season, and you'd like to think that they can carry this over into the new season. But Willian, I guess just a bit of a surprise because he's, as Dave mentioned earlier, he's a bit of a hot and cold player. I guess Martial's a bit streaky as well, isn't he? Though we've seen.
Oh yeah,
we've seen that at times too.
But in a way, I feel like Martial's settled now, whereas I always felt before there was kind of like there was stuff going on behind the scenes with Martial, and all the unrest at Man United was kind of a result of like what you saw of him on the pitch, the kind of inconsistent player. And now I feel like things have settled down at United. They've got quality players around him. He looks like he is going to be a more consistent player from now on while this continues. Whereas Willian, I don't think we will see this continue into next season with him. Because, he's been at Chelsea a long time, I suppose you could say. And if you look at him over the period he's been at Chelsea, he has been at moments of magic, and he has been a quality servant for them. But then Chelsea fans would expect he'll go back to his usual ways.
Yeah, he's 32 in August as well. So
yeah. I think we are going to see the best of Martial now. I think he looks a lot more content and a lot more kind of like this is the type of player that Man United signed. I think they might have just rescued that situation just in time for him as a player and his career at Man United, because he was getting close to that kind of, do we want to cut him loose?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, actually, and there have been a lot of players that Man United have signed over the last few years. It probably would have been great in this United team now, like Memphis Depay, for instance. Maybe the time that what they came in was just a poor time for United, and their whole careers probably ended up suffering for it, really. Technically great players, gone now to like lesser clubs and, showed they can still do it, but that time at United was just poorly timed in that there was too much going on behind the scenes and the rest of the team wasn't quite there as well.
Yeah, Depay's a good one. Depay's a good one. He's obviously had success elsewhere, hasn't he? And not quite at the same sort of wages that he probably would have earned at Man United, but at the same time, he's at Lyon that he's at.
Yeah, he's doing really well out there. Really well.
Yeah. Number 1, though, is another Man United player. We've talked about him already on most shows, I think, this year. He's been pretty phenomenal, which is Bruno Fernandes. 11.2 he's averaged since the lockdown finished, which is quite something. It's way above the next best of 9.2. The other two, who were second. He's just been phenomenal, hasn't he, Bruno Fernandes? He's turned that Man United team around.
If you take he's played 10 games, and if you averaged out his points over and prorated it for 38 games, he could finish the season on 357 points. And I think the highest ever score was Salah a couple of seasons ago and got 303. That's the biggest individual point haul ever. And Fernandes would beat that by 20%, which is just bloody ridiculous.
Seems to have just put the heartbeat in that Man United team. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Like one signing would necessarily fix that team. I mean, it very rarely happens in football.
They obviously needed that creative attacking midfielder because if you compare obviously what we know now about how Fernandes plays and then to a midfield 3 that United had of Fred, Matic, and McTominay or Pereira. There's all solid sort of just central midfielders. There's very little any movement to break things forward, and Fernandes brought that in immediately with the creativity and the vision as well, and just forward passing between the lines. So he's been a bloody revelation. And yeah, he's played 10 games and he's got 94 points, which is 6 less than Pepe. And Pepe's been playing all season.
Poor Pepe. He's not had a good time of it on this podcast, does he?
No.
Or in life lately. So I'll run through some of the players on the periphery, and then I'll go over some of the high-profile absentees, who you've just mentioned one of them, obviously, anyway. So some of the players on the periphery are Aubameyang, Vardy, Jimenez and Rashford. They all average between 4 and 6 points per game since the lockdown finished. In midfield, you've got Mahrez, Saint-Maximin, Stuart Armstrong at Southampton, and David Silva are 5 other midfielders who averaged over 5 points since the lockdown. Not a single defender has actually averaged over 6 points in the past 5 games. But 4 players have averaged 5.8. So that's Lucas Digne, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Wolves' Johnny. And then you got a similar picture in goal where the highest average is 5.8 as well. And that's 3 players who've done that, which is Nick Pope, Kasper Schmeichel, and Hugo Lloris. So almost all the big points are in midfield, with a few exceptions of Greenwood and Ings. You know, you want your points, you want to overload it with those big midfielders, which is not really surprising, is it, for FPL players?
No, and that's kind of my team set up at the moment. I've got a midfield of Salah, De Bruyne, Martial, Son, and Fernandes. I think I'm going to have to get rid of Son. I'm not quite sure at the moment. Maybe Mahrez, actually.
Son's one of the high-profile absentees, really. He's been busier sort of scrapping with Lloris than he has been scoring since the lockdown finished. That military training didn't necessarily bode well for him. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's entirely his fault. Spurs just look a complete mess at the moment. Really poor.
Yeah, they've barely created anything against Bournemouth. Just
not a single shot on target against the worst team in the league right now is pretty pitiful. Mourinho afterwards trying to blame everybody but himself and his team was just classic Jose.
Yeah, you can get a feel when the players don't really buy into it, don't you? You can see it on the pitch, and it just looks like that at the moment.
Yeah. Sadio Mane has actually not been as good as he was certainly in the first half of the season. He's only got 2 goals since the lockdown finished. No assists either. And he's been sort of rested a few games, which hasn't helped people who have lent on him. And then you've got Pepe, who we mentioned, who's burning a 9 million hole in any managers who for some reason still have him. I had a look. 3% of FPL managers still have him. I can only assume there are 3% of people who are not still playing the game. And if you are still playing the game and you have Pepe, then I would definitely question your sanity, to be honest. Sergio Aguero is obviously another person who's super expensive, but injury is keeping him sidelined. And Gabriel Jesus, I think, is one of the players who really has to be quite disappointed with how his post-lockdown action has gone, because he's 9.5 million. Man City have scored 20 goals since lockdown ended against 6 different teams in the league. And for him to only have 1 goal during that time is pretty mad when you're a centre forward. So if I was Pep Guardiola, I'd be thinking hard about whether I want to sign a striker in the summer to fill that potential Aguero void with him aging a bit, and also the fact he's always injured. You know, you need someone really you can rely on in attack, surely.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, mate. I think he's just when they first signed him, he was reasonably prolific, and I was incredibly worried that City were just getting even better, and he's just really not kicked on to the level I expected. I think Aguero was getting dropped a few seasons ago quite a bit more, and it looked like they were already trying to transition away from Aguero to Jesus, and it's just obviously Aguero came back very, very strong. He's just not kicked on anywhere near as much.
It just doesn't look like he's got a hunger for scoring. Really, it just doesn't cut one of these, like a striker that's just thirsty for goals.
The comparison with Greenwood is like chalk and cheese. It's just completely different. When you look at those 2 strikers, it's just so wildly different.
I'd imagine he'll be off to Serie A next season, and then he'll probably score a load of goals there, just floating around in the area. But
yeah, maybe it's just because he replaced Iniacho, didn't he, at City, who had burst onto the scene and looked to be, the new kid on the block that was going to, be Aguero's deputy and then take over from him. And obviously then he got flogged to Leicester. And I remember sticking him in my fantasy team at the start because I thought, he's going to be playing up front on his own with Vardy and he'll get loads of matches, score loads of goals. And he's not really done it either.
Yeah, it doesn't look that mobile either. Like, you look at strikers like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, gets where Water can't. He's always in the box. He's always like right in front of the goal. In between the defenders. I never see that from Jesus. He's just like, he's always kind of like a bit. I don't know. He never seems to be in the right place at the right time. And then his touch seems to let him down quite a lot as well. So he's not really someone I'd associate with a Manchester City striker, other than the kit he's putting on every week.
So I'm just looking at Iniacho's stats now. So it was 2015-2016 season. He scored 8 goals, and he's got 5 this season, and that's the most he's scored since then. He's only played 820 minutes this season.
He must have played most of them in the last 5 matches. Like, he actually, he's been.
I quite like him as a striker. I think my opinion of him is biased.
Wow.
Given that I've been playing him on FIFA a lot, and he's actually a pretty good striker on FIFA, especially when I'm battering the computer AI on amateur. Someone we not mentioned though. I haven't seen him. Have we mentioned Saka at all in this list? Because he seems to be popping up for Arsenal now and again. I think he's quite an exciting player.
Saka has his form is currently 4.2, so he's it's not bad, but it's not, he the last 2 games he's averaged 8 by getting 10 points and 6 points, but before that he was a little bit here and there. He didn't start against Norwich when they won 4-0, which no doubt impacted his points tally, but he definitely looks like somebody who who could get quite a lot of points. He'll be more expensive next season for sure. I think he's 4.7 now, so he's in that same little Greenwood pocket of players who are going to be more expensive next season.
He's been popping up with the assists, hasn't he? And he scored that lovely goal against Wolves. That looked like volley.
It was top, that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we could see more from him as Arsenal improve under Arteta. It's a very slow improvement. It seems like it's kind of faltering slightly at the moment, but you can see little aspects of it.
They've got Spurs this weekend, don't they? In a bit of a big North London derby for who can grab that 8th spot this season. So we'll see who comes out trumps in that.
2 insecure teams taking each other on. Battle for confidence.
Moving on then, let's have a look specifically, I guess, a nice little segue to game week 35 and 36. I ummed and ahed a little bit about what I was going to do with my changes. So I was split between 3 players. I couldn't decide between Everton's Luka Digne, Wan-Bissaka of Man United, and Liverpool's Andy Robertson. And in the end, I picked Robertson, but I picked him before both of those other players played last night. And then I think Wan-Bissaka got a clean sheet, and then Digne got an assist, and I sort of regretted it because I thought, what if Robertson doesn't get anything? And I've now got 3 Liverpool players, 3 Liverpool defenders. So I've properly gone all in on them. So it's all or nothing. Liverpool get a clean sheet, and I'm living it large. But if they don't, then I'm pretty screwed. So I'm really crossing my fingers for that Liverpool clean sheet. They've got Burnley in this as a home match coming up this weekend, and then the week after that, in the sort of midweek fixture, they have Arsenal away. But I mean, they could keep a clean sheet against Arsenal. They probably won't, but they could. I'm being optimistic.
I think you've gone with the right choice there. Although it's weird with Wan-Bissaka because personally I think he's probably the weakest player in United's back 4, if you like.
He's better than Shaw.
Personally, I thought when I was watching the game last night, I thought he looked like he was making quite a lot of mistakes, whereas Shaw didn't really. I thought if anyone was going to cost United a goal at the start, it seemed to be him. He seemed to lose his man at the back post quite a lot. concede possession now and again. It wasn't like it wasn't awful, but in that United team where all the players seem to be playing a lot better, I didn't think he was necessarily playing any better. But, you know, United as a whole, they are keeping clean sheets and they are looking good defensively. So you're going to get points from Wan-Bissaka, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think Robertson's a good shout.
Yeah, I mean, he's not done as well since the lockdown ended, but he's been rested a couple of times. And I just think maybe he was brought on, I think he was brought on at half-time against Brighton. Was it Nico Williams who wasn't necessarily having the best time of it in the first half? So I think he'll probably start again for the rest of the season. I hope he will anyway. And, you know, if they keep a few clean sheets, then I'm in the money. I'm also planning to use my free hit, which I've still got knocking around in game week 37, when Liverpool have Chelsea. So I won't have to worry about the fact I've got 3 Liverpool players for that match. So
nice.
I'm finishing bottom. Can't believe you got a free hit left as well.
I've been saving it. I've been banking it. I want to see. It's that weekend where I think it's the FA Cup semi-final, so it'll be a bit of a weird game week. But they're all the matches are in one game week, but you get a few of the big fixtures are going to be in the midweek after the weekend. So I
think I should go through my changes then, seeing as though the battle for second seems to be on.
Go on then.
In contrast, so
yeah.
Defensively, I haven't made any changes there, so I've still got Trent, Kyle Walker, Stevens, Sheffield United, Lundstrom, and Bowley. So I'll play around with them and pick whoever's best. Probably 3 at the back. De Bruyne, even though I was slagging him off before. He's obviously an amazing player. Everybody knows it. Mahrez, Martial, Saka, and Fernandes. So for me, that's a brilliant midfield, but picking who to play is the difficult one slightly, as I've brought in Ings and Greenwood up front to accompany Giroud, who Chelsea, right? Giroud plays, Chelsea win. Giroud doesn't play, Chelsea lose. So I'm surprised Frank Lampard hasn't figured this out yet, because he dropped, after I put him in the team, I think he scored in the first game and then he dropped him. Chelsea lost. And then he was back in again, Chelsea winning again. So, you know, just play Giroud. So they're the changes. So I brought in Mahrez in midfield and Greenwood and Ings up front, taking a minus 4-point deduction, which is a very risky thing to do when you're so hot on my tail.
Ooh.
But I haven't got a free hit, so I think this is locked in now. Southampton's fixtures towards the end of the season. Ings is a quality striker, right? We didn't even talk about him being an England player next summer, for instance. But if he avoids injury and everything and carries on playing like he is, you know, there's no reason that he won't be part of that conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's the goals he scores. We were talking about Greenwood. He's a natural finisher. I've watched him play, you know, when he was at Bournemouth in League One, and you just knew he was going to go to the top because of how the kind of instinctive striker he is. So
he was so unlucky at Liverpool, wasn't he?
Yeah, and, it's a major blip in his career, isn't it?
Yeah, it could have gone so differently if he'd stayed away from injury. So it's good to see him bouncing back. And I think all of us, it's fair to say, all of us didn't expect it to last this long. And yet, but you know, the goal last night, even though he had no idea what he was doing with his feet, the fact he reacted in that way and the run that he made for it was very impressive. And you know, he's clearly somebody, as you say, who will be in contention for the Euros next summer. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, if he's still at Southampton, I guess.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Sam, what about your team? How's it looking?
Tip top. So I'll have Henderson in goal. Who have Sheffield United got? Leicester away, easy. And then my defence is Maguire, Aurier, Bowley, and Saiss, with Holgate on the bench, but I think he's injured at the moment. A midfield 5. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to play this actually. Either way, my 5 midfielders are going to be Salah, De Bruyne, Martial, probably Mahrez and Fernandes. And then up front, I've got Nketiah, who was banned because he was naughty. Calvert-Lewin and Jimenez. But I might change Calvert-Lewin. Might give him one more.
Who've Everton got?
Villa. Who most teams struggle with, apart from United, because they're mint. And then they've got Sheffield United away. Yeah, I've not been impressed with
Wolves.
Everton have got Wolves away. Yeah,
they've got Wolves. Yeah.
Oh,
so
I wouldn't. Game week. Sorry.
It's difficult against Wolves. Yeah. I guess that game could go either way, really.
I've got
Wolves.
Doherty, and I'm believing that Wolves will get a clean sheet and a win in that one. Everton have not been that great. I mean, they're not conceding loads, but they're proper mid-table guff right now.
I agree. So yeah, I've got a couple of changes. I might take a -4 if Dave's taking -4 as well.
You can afford to take a -12. Yeah.
Do you know what? I was just thinking to myself when you said I've taken a -4. I was like, I could play a wild card and just take a 40-point hit to try and make the league more interesting, just to level it off. So we've got a really intense last few weeks. And I thought, nah.
Are there any other leagues you're in where you're a title contender?
No.
More competitive leagues.
This is it, basically.
Yeah.
This is your chance.
This is my thing. There's a couple. I'm in one with my brother and my cousins, and I'm 70 points ahead of that in that one. So yeah, this is the second easiest one I'm in.
What a nice part.
What a compliment, yeah.
On that fine note, let's wrap this up. Dave, Sam, thanks very much for joining me from your homes today. Podcast listeners, YouTube viewers, you can get in touch by tweeting your fantasy football thoughts with the hashtag UKFFS. We'll be back at the same time next week for more FPL action.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts on your favourite platform. Leave a review if you liked it, and if you didn't, what are you still doing here? Check out Goal for your daily dose of football news from the Premier League and around the world. Thanks for listening.